Welcome to the Transform Your Relationship podcast, where we'll go beyond the typical relationship advice. I'm your host, Manisha Terry, somatic healing practitioner and mentor. Each week, I'll share personal insights, client success stories, and how my holistic trauma-informed approach can help you transform your relationship from the inside out. You'll learn ways to recognize and prioritize your needs, get to the root of what's upsetting you, and courageously ask for what you want so you can confidently co-create the relationship you desire. You'll also hear from guest experts who will be invited to share their unique approaches to transformation, and at the end of each episode, you'll receive one tangible practice you can implement right away to transform your relationship. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Transform Your Relationship podcast. I am here with a guest today, so I'm excited to welcome Julie Reisler. She's a certified master life coach and author, and I invited her on because she actually does many things. But as we were discussing what we really wanted to talk about today, intuition and heart math and heart intelligence was coming up really strongly. So I thought we would dive into that today and really talk about how it intersects with relationships. So welcome, Julie. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much. I am so excited about this conversation. I'm honored to be part of your show, and I love the topic of this whole conversation. So I'm really excited to be here with you and everyone listening, of course.
Wonderful. Great. Well, before we dive in, why don't you take a moment and let our listeners know who you are and what you do and who you help and anything you'd like to share.
Yeah, I will do like the quickest.
Okay.
Because it's important to say this, that for me, the entree into all of this inner, depth of just studying yourself and becoming your best self. I really believe the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. No question. I am an experiential learner. And about 20 years ago, I stepped through the 12-step support group doors to work on overcoming addiction that I had with food, actually overeating, to block emotions, to not have a relationship with myself. And in that, a lot of unpacking of layers and layers and layers. And that led me to the world of personal development, inner transformation, coaching. I worked with a coach through a program I did that literally changed my life, the way I looked at my life. That led me to make some courageous decisions, like leaving a marriage that was just not the best fit. I had 2 kids under the age of 3 at the time, leaving a job that was great. It was good, not, a soul fit, I would say. And going back to get a master's degree, actually in coaching, while I was working as a single mom. And so long story short, I started my own business about 8 years ago as a coach, entrepreneur. I just wanted to help as many people as as much as possible to develop that relationship that can really change your life. And so that was the path I really leaned in on, my intuition, which we'll talk about. And this idea that we're all coming, looking at everyone as from a holistic, integrated perspective. And so started my business. I grew that. I wrote my first book, Get a PhD in You, all about developing your relationship with yourself. I was grateful enough, lucky to do 2 TED Talks all about this work, and got asked to teach at Georgetown University in their health and wellness coaching program, and then started my own coaching certification program 2.5 years ago, right at the beginning of when our world did a cartwheel, and just wanted to help as many individuals. I work with mainly, really empowered, highly sensitive, empathic women who want to make a bigger impact. And so that is, for me, it comes really through the experience I've had myself. I still get coached. I love anything around building that relationship with yourself. And I work on that in myself every single day. I think it is, as I said in the beginning, the most important one we have.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing those parts of your story. And, everyone I've had on, for the most part, they have this personal story that really leads them to their heart's work, or the method or the modality or the teaching that they're a part of, and now they're like translating and helping others with. So I love that so much. It sounds like, yeah, your own journey has been leading you along the way.
I think as we start talking about, connecting into our greater wisdom and how that shows up, that intelligence through our heart, through our greater intuition. For me, I blocked that for many years. I trapped myself. Let me say it that way. I'm not a victim. I felt that I was, but I'm not. We're not, in people pleasing and not enoughness, and feeling just really like I'd missed the boat somehow. And let me just figure out how to be who you need me to be, or what I need to do to do well, and just totally shove down, my own feelings and who I am. And I'll tell you, it doesn't work. I believe, I ended up having a thyroid condition, which is ceiling, but no question due to not speaking up. So this work, to me, it's life-changing, it's powerful, it's healing. And I see it as we all have this inner wisdom and knowledge, and we can talk about it, but I live by that. My whole life, my business has been really powered by, connecting into greater intuition, and to slowing down, and to really asking, what's the most loving thing I can do here? And what's the way I can be of greatest service to not just for myself, but anyone, others as well.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many things that just brought up. So I'm going to try to keep us on track, but I do have a question on that. I think, well, one, I have seen so many other women have different health issues along this path of like discovering themselves, because it usually shows up as a suppression in their body somewhere. And I had that myself, and many of the clients I've worked with, maybe come in with that and they don't realize the connection. And so I heard you talk about that in terms of your thyroid, but was it that, or were there other things? Like, what were some of the things that were showing up in your life where you were like, I just need to do something different. Like, this is not working.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like, and this is before we, were wearing masks. I literally felt like, I think the more that I did this inner work that came through, therapy and coaching, but certainly 12-step doors, the more I did that, and the more I started to get in tune with, a lot of what I teach, which is listening to your body. And I started to realize, like, my life does not feel aligned. I'm married to a good person. For a variety of reasons, didn't feel like the right fit. Differences in just not just religion, but in how we saw the world, and not that he's wrong or I'm right or nothing like that. It just started to not feel right. And I started to realize, oh my gosh, I've been ignoring those feelings, that body wisdom, a lot of what I teach about. And I think, as I got more in tune with myself, it's like, when you have a radio station and it's staticky and you can kind of hear, like, I'm just going to call myself out. I love Journey. I love the song Don't Stop Believing. I'm such a nerd like that. But, if you hear it on a station that's like too far away, it sounds really staticky. It's like, you can't really hear it, but you might still listen. I think of it similarly. As you tune into yourself, all of a sudden it's very clear. It's like, oh, there we go. Don't stop believing. Well, that's kind of what happened. I feel like my receivers just got really fine-tuned. And it was, honestly, it was waking me up, in the middle of the night. I was noticing, I'd never had a panic attack, and I had a panic attack. And a lot of clues. And then of course just started to really pay attention. I'm like, this is not joke. Like, it's no joke. Our bodies don't lie. They don't lie.
They really don't. And I appreciate you naming that, because I think sometimes we just don't make that connection between some of these physical symptoms, like not sleeping well, or a panic attack, or just low-grade anxiety. And people think, well, this is just how it is. Everybody's stressed out. And yes, I mean, the majority of people are stressed out for good. I mean, there's a lot of things going on in the world that are incredibly stressful. So there's that piece. But if you're constantly feeling that in your body and you're being woken up, and so you use a phrase, my life didn't feel like it was in alignment. And I think the word feel is so interesting, because it can mean so many different things, like the feeling of the sensations in our body or the feeling of our emotions. And so that feels, I think we as women also say that a lot, like, I feel like, and it's such a phrase that's commonly used. And we do have that intuition and that inner knowing, but so often we ignore it or block it. And so maybe we can kind of dive into that and just kind of explore like, well, what made you start paying more attention? The physical symptoms were coming, and then like what else kind of led you down that path of really following your intuition?
Yeah. Well, and there is some science behind this too, which is helpful to understand. But look, I believe we are all literally have, connections to a greater wisdom, a field of intelligence. We actually do have that. I've done some studying and work with the Heart Math Institute. I did a facilitator program with them, and what is taught in this 40 years of research, our heart has over 40,000 sensory neurites. And it is a polar organ, which means it unlike your brain, when you ask a question, your brain's going to go to yes or no. It's going to, analysis paralysis, like everyone probably know what that is. If you ask, and it might sound silly, but if you connect into your heart, there's what's called heart coherence, which can shift the heart rate. When your heart rate variability, there's a certain level, and you can actually track it. I have the inner balance device, and I can see, I'm in coherence. I am not in coherence. Stress is one of the best ways to kick yourself out of coherence. So if you are stressed, you're overwhelmed, and you're not practiced at noticing, it can affect your heart rate variability, and it can affect your coherence. So what happens is if you think of it this way, we are all connected to this greater, if you've studied anything around quantum physics, or you don't even have to study quantum physics, just understanding there's a field of intelligence. We're all connected. Our heart, you can actually learn to tune into, ask your heart, and you, with practice, will start to be able to really sense, feel, hear information. And it's unlike the brain. When you ask a question, you're going to get usually a very short, simple answer. This is part of what I teach in my coaching program, is how to use these techniques to access that part of you that's beyond the rational thinking mind, that's beyond, the stories, the doubts, the fears. And so you are tapping into, there's a larger electromagnetic field around your heart. We know this with horses. I think horses have like 20 times the range that humans do. And I'm not positive if it's that amount, but it's more. And that's part of the reason they're being used now for therapy for, those with PTSD and trauma, is they can sense the people around them and know how to respond and mirror that back. Anyhow, back to humans, there's a lot, I started to notice and tune into those feelings. I'd spent years pushing them down. What are we taught in this society? I mean, honestly, I believe we've been raised in a pretty patriarchal society, which is very focused on the doing, the thinking, the rational. It's not that we don't want that. Yet there's a whole other aspect of intelligence and wisdom that is not in the rational thinking mind, that's often in how you're feeling. So I learned not to push that down. And what happened was, oh my gosh, like all of this information is coming through to me. Not always easy. Waking up with a panic attack is no fun. But I started learning to do intuitive journaling. I would just ask, my throat, my thyroid, like, what is happening? What's the message? What do you need from me? And that there's so much in that, but I will say, the more you pay attention to your inner wisdom, your gut feeling, your intuition, it's like a muscle. If you go to the gym and you start using it, it is going to start, sharing with you. And I think that's where we need support, because sometimes, you don't necessarily want to deal with or hear that information. Sometimes it's really empowering and encouraging. I always say, whatever it is that you can feel is true for you, if you take the approach that everything is happening for you, no matter what is going on, that can really help with whatever is coming through.
Yeah, I think that, as you said, we can slow down and start to listen, but we don't always want to hear what's coming through. And that can be part of that pushing away or pushing down. Or I know that a lot of times people will say, well, I want to explore that, but I'm like nervous about what might come up, or I might start to feel some of this, say, anger, but I don't want it to turn into rage. Like, what if I can't handle that? And there's so much, I think, underneath some of these pieces. And you had mentioned intuitive journaling. And so that's one tool, it sounds like, that you were using. But in addition to that, like if somebody was saying to you, I know that there's like something going on underneath this, like discontent, and what might you offer as like a beginner step if somebody's like nervous or wary of what's underneath?
Well, I think it's a great question. A couple of things. One, that's part of the reason I went into the field of coaching, because I really think having someone who's trained and knows what they're doing can really help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, therapy can pair well. I mean, those pair beautifully together. I think the thing to get is your body, and there's the book, The Body Keeps Score. Okay. The body, your body, my body, our bodies are processing what we're feeling, what we're thinking. So the best thing you can do is to shine love, a loving, compassionate. These are all heart qualities. Like we have qualities, literally heart qualities are compassion, appreciation, forgiveness, love, care. So I would say tuning into those heart qualities with yourself. So just first of all, being compassionate with yourself. It's okay to be, I would just start with where you are. If you're scared, soothing that part of you. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be apprehensive. You can start there with that's what's going on. And, how might I surround this? What I would say is, get somebody you trust or get your journal out. And you could even ask, like, how might I, look at this from a loving lens? How might I look at this as something that is happening for me? It's a message. There's a gift here. There's something to see. Because what I've seen is when we don't listen to ourselves, and I find this a lot with women, honestly, when we don't trust ourselves or push those things down, they come back later, and they come back often more extreme. That's not to scare people, but I have literally like lived that, seen that with clients. Yeah. And so we want to approach it. I think in the end, it's from that compassionate, loving, non-judgmental listener. Do that for yourself. You can also do that for yourself and find someone to hold space for you, like a coach who can do that.
Yeah. I think really allowing ourselves to be where we are and just sitting with that is really the first step. And sometimes maybe people feel like, well, that's not enough, because we are really taught to be the doers. And if it's not action oriented, or goal oriented, nothing's happening. But that act of sitting with and being with is so powerful and so transformative. And it's maybe hard to understand sometimes until you feel it, and then once you feel it, you really start to see the power of it.
Can I add one quick thing that you said? Really, one thing I would say, a great place to start, honestly, this is kind of what happened to me. I went back, got my master's degree, and one of the classes was in mind, body science and meditation. And I was like, oh crap, I can't sit still. I would say where to start. Seriously, start with some silence and breathing. People fancy word meditation, get ocean sounds on Alexa or rain, or, I love Insight Timer. I'm up on there. I have a lot of free meditations, or find calming music, or just sit still, give yourself 3 minutes, start slow. Every day, build that. That was going to so help you to connect to your inner world in a way that most of us going so fast on our phones, on devices. If you're not taking that time out, you're not going to hear it until it's screaming at you. And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's such a good point. I often say to people, just set a timer for 3 minutes. Like, it's going to ding, right? This is going to be over. So it is finite. You can do this, and, you can build up that muscle. So yeah, thank you for highlighting that. I'm wondering a little bit more about, just going into that piece with the heart math that you talked about with the coherence. I love that word so much, because it feels like something I can sense, like when something is in coherence, it feels like, oh, it's in harmony. There's this inherent balance. And when there is that inherent balance, information can come in, like that kind of intuitive information. And I'm wondering just about what you've noticed, like either for yourself or maybe with clients you've worked with or the women you've coached in your program. What have you noticed starts to happen when they explore those tools for themselves, but then also for relationships in their lives?
Yeah. Well, the best place to start is with yourself. So that coherence, it's exactly that, right? Creating that harmony, that balance. It's where what you might feel, because I think going back to that feeling place, you're going to feel calmer. You're going to feel more at ease, grounded. I mean, it is night and day for me. And somebody who has had low level anxiety, I can tell you that when you're in an anxious patterning, you are not in coherence because that stress response which so many of us are now, you can get used to, and then you start to think that's the way it is. So one of the best things you can do, really quick, I'll just teach this because everyone can do this with me. It's really easy. First of all, is as long as this is comfortable, if it's not, you can imagine doing this, but you're going to put a hand or both hands on your heart. And what I do is I usually instruct people to, let your shoulders come down. If you're comfortable to close your eyes, obviously, if you're driving, you would never do that. But when you're stressed or you're overwhelmed, this is a great practice. And if you can't really do it in public, you could just imagine putting your hands on your heart. But there is something very healing, very soothing. So your hand on your heart, first of all, you want to notice, just tuning in, maybe even sending some gratitude for your heart that is beating. Literally, it's been beating on your behalf since you were born. And then, just taking a few breaths, what's called heart-focused breathing, imagining your breath is coming in and out of your heart. And what you want to do, and this is interesting, Misha, it's not thinking about these qualities, it's embodying them. So you want to either think of a person that you love, a pet, a favorite experience or place to visit. And you want to cultivate that heart, those heart quality, those heart characteristic, those core heart feelings like appreciation, care, love. All of those have a very soothing, calming effect that can help you get into coherence. I always say, if when in doubt, you can always just go to your heart and literally, it's pretty amazing. You didn't do anything to make it beat today. It's been beating nonstop since day one. So go in there. You want to feel those qualities, though. It's not just thinking them. You have to feel them. When you feel them, that starts to change your coherence and your stress response. So that's where feeling is really important. This is not about thinking. You can't just think your way into coherence, not thinking love. You got to feel, okay, my favorite person, my pet, whatever it is. And that's a great little, even 2 minutes of doing that. You don't even have to close your eyes. That can totally shift your body, your stress response, your coherence.
Yeah. I mean, even as you're describing it, I can see how it would just shift your physiology pretty quickly, which is really what creates that kind of anxious feeling within us when that's activated. So if there's a story or something that comes to mind, like of somebody that you can think of, I'd love for you to share maybe an example. And it doesn't have to be heart math specifically, but just kind of this starting to tune in and really tapping into the intuition. I'm sure you have so many.
I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I worked with a client. She's also since become a very dear friend, and I'm thinking of her story. She has had, her father died early on in her life, some trauma there. And we were working together just around something wanted to express through her and she wasn't sure, something beyond. She has her own business, was doing really well, but felt like something was missing. The way I hear it is kind of like the light is dim, but it's not fully on. And we always started and did quite a bit of this connecting into your heart and intuition. And I, led her in we actually did a guided visualization together, and she realized it was just amazing because she realized that there's this muse in her, this writer, and that's a big piece that's missing for her. And she ended up coming up with this book and the title, and has now published an incredibly powerful book. It's won awards. It's called Authentic Power. She's amazing. And it came out of this like realization, honoring her intuition. And what had felt like things felt a little blah, like she couldn't figure it out. She's like, what is happening? So, when I worked with Ashley, she was like, able to birth this idea that was just, it can seem like things feel blasé or blah, or like there's just something missing. That is often the seed of that is like, I want to express, I want to be here. I want to, so, often it's wonderful things that want to come through. And she ended up writing that book, and it has done incredibly well and helped so many people.
Yeah, I love that so much, because there is sometimes just if something feels a little bit blocked or a little bit stuck, or even how you described her, it's like she has this business and she's doing well. So it's not necessarily, the situation where your life is falling apart or you are having all these issues. It could also be this thing of something doesn't feel quite right, and let me do some work and tune into my heart. And then all of these things start to flow through. So I love that.
I think the thing I would just say, if there's one thing people, if you get to those listening, and so grateful you're still here listening with us, is I love this quote by Rumi. It's what you're seeking is seeking you. So, I think of it as like, we all are walking around with these treasure chests in us, and our heart is one of the best ways. Our intuition is one of the best ways to unlock that. We all have our own key waiting to unlock our own treasure. And I think this goes back to, relationships, that relationship, honoring yourself, honoring your dream, honoring what's going on within you. The more you do that with you, the better you can be as a partner and friend, a sister, a mother, whatever that might be. So I've seen this, and I believe this, that, that like with Ashley, her greater dream and desire, it was just kind of latent in there. And when we ask those questions, when we dare to look inside, that's where really, like, not only the magic happens, but frankly, like with her, and this is what I think is the thing to remember, is whatever it's like, it's going to be something that's going to help you and going to help others. I believe that there's always that at the greater core is trying to find what's going to be moving me and make the biggest impact for those I'm here to help and serve and support as well. And so I just hope people really pay attention and listen, because it's meant to be discovered, I believe.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I know that so many people who are sensitive and empathic, they want better for the world, and seeing what's happening in the world can definitely dim our lights and kind of push us down and overwhelm us. And so like finding that path of tuning in, seeing like what you can contribute into this world that can feel kind of chaotic at times, and like really make a powerful difference by tuning in to ourselves and cultivating that inner relationship. That's what I'm hearing.
Well, and I think, yeah, absolutely. And the last thing I'll say with that is my belief, at least, is, you can talk all about the outer world, but in the end, the outer world changes when our inner world changes. Change how kind you are to yourself. You want more kindness? Be more kind to yourself. You want more love? Be more loving. You want, I really, so to me, these are practices that will make a big impact. Starting small, starting with yourself, and not, of course, underestimating the power we each have. Each of us has a lot of power to make an impact, starting in ourselves.
Beautiful. Thank you. So before I let you go, I think you know what I'm going to ask you. And you already shared some really great tools and practices, but is there something specific you'd like to leave us with in terms of like a tool or a practice that you could offer the listeners that will really help to transform their relationships? I mean, I think that the inner relationship was the real focus today, which I love, and which is what I talk about a lot. But I think there's so many beautiful practices and tools we can do. So maybe you can share like your top 3, because I know you have so many that you share.
Yeah. So I think this is something I was taught and I teach in my coaching program. And what I would say for any relationship, I think the number one thing I think that you can do that can make the biggest difference is rather than go to blame, and this is not always easy, or who's right, go to curiosity, go to curiosity, like without attachment, go to just, I'm going to just get super curious and ask questions, not from a place of, manipulation. I mean, like really unattached, compassionate curiosity. I think that is probably one of the best tools to use with yourself.
Yeah.
What's happening, and to use with others. The one to follow that is loving, how the question I usually ask is, how can I be more loving here? How can I be more loving to myself? How could I be more loving in this situation? It doesn't mean taking, someone's being abusive. I'm not saying that way. The most loving thing might be to leave the conversation or to end the relationship. However, that question, how can I be more loving? What's the most loving thing I can do here for myself and for everyone involved? And the third one would just be grace. How am I extending grace here to this person, to myself? Because you know what? In the end, personally speaking, I think most human beings are really trying to do the best they can. It looks different for all of us. So curiosity, how can I be more loving? Grace. Those would be my 3 top ways of trying to bring a little more goodness and empowerment and harmony in relationships and with yourself.
Yeah, those are so beautiful. Thank you. Well, I so appreciate you being here and sharing your gifts and your wisdom and your magic with us. And I would love for you to just share with the listeners where they can find you and how they can connect with you.
Thank you so much. This is just, I love talking to you. And I would say that the best place to find me, my website, it's my name, juliereisler.com. You probably have the spelling. It's like REI, like the store. I'm also on Insight Timer, which is a phenomenal free mindfulness app. I have tons of free meditations and courses and talks up there, like 50 plus, been there for quite a while, and lots of good resources. And then anywhere, social media, Instagram, Facebook, all of them, just look at my name. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put all that in the show notes, and we can link your book that you mentioned as well into the show notes so people can check that out. So thank you again for being here. Just so appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode of the Transform Your Relationship podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to help more people find us so they can transform their relationships too. As a thank you, every month, we'll pick one winner to receive a free 45-minute one-on-one somatic coaching session with me to explore and gain clarity around a relationship challenge. And if you know somebody who could benefit from listening to the show, then please do share and help me reach more highly sensitive women who want to experience richer, more connected relationships.